How would the party sort out the crisis in our water industry as South Devon residents demand more action from the boss of our water company over their contaminated supply?
Where has she been? Where are the answers for the people of Brixham?
This is unacceptable. And how dare you announce massive profits and shareholder dividends while we can't drink our tap water?
Now, South West Water's notice to boil water is still in place for part of Brixham following an outbreak of the parasite Cryptosporidium, which made scores of people ill. The general election has, for now at least, spared the company's boss the ordeal of being hauled over the coals by MPs at Westminster, but there's still great anger among politicians and residents, some of whom are calling for Chief Executive Susan Davey to answer to them instead.
It's been horrendous, carting all the water up from down because we're upside down. And not having much energy anyway after being poorly.
It's not just the boil water notice, it's the 2 weeks beforehand that people were sick as well. So for us, for the local residents, this has been going on almost a month now.
What's your message to South West Water and the CEO, Susan Davey?
Where has she been? Where are the answers for the people of Brixham?
This is unacceptable. And how dare you announce massive profits and shareholder dividends while we can't drink our tap water.
Well, the incident has caused widespread concern and was raised in both the Commons and the Lords this week.
My Lords, the first television news on this Brixham infection indicated that the contamination, apart from those already affected, was contained. The next day's bulletin retracted this statement, telling viewers the area of contamination had widened. Bottled water was available to some, but not all living in this area.
Remind the House of my previous interest, no longer there, as being chairman of a small water company. Therefore, I do know a bit about it, and all I was going to say was, I hope that my noble friend will insist that the water companies behave properly, of course, but will he please remind the opposition that when it was run by the state and municipalities, we didn't have any investment at all. That was why it was privatised, not for any other reason, and that in the years after privatisation, a great deal of investment has taken place.
Scotland, real bills are still the same as they were 17 years ago, while English bills have increased by over 16% in real terms over the same period. If you compare what the publicly owned Scottish Water invests in its water industry and supplies, it invests over 1/3 more per capita than any private English company. Doesn't one conclude from that in fact publicly owned companies are doing better than privately owned ones? And if that is not the Minister's conclusion, how does he explain the differential?
Well, as we heard there from Lord Deben, the former Conservative MP and Environment Secretary John Selwyn Gummer, the reasoning behind water privatisation in the 1990s was that shareholders would inject the capital needed to improve the ageing Victorian system. But a report this week by Greenwich University says it's customers' bills which have financed new infrastructure and that billions of pounds of debt has been taken on, not for investments in improvements, but in order to finance dividends to shareholders. Mishala Sripathma explains.
Protesters angry at the continuing poor quality of bathing water.
This just cannot be right, that we still have a Victorian-type sewage system where this doesn't keep us safe and is not protecting our environment.
Sewage spills in England's rivers and seas by water companies more than doubled in 2023, with environmental campaigners blaming a failure to fix leaky pipes and other damaged infrastructure. Now, a new report from the University of Greenwich highlights what it calls chronic underinvestment, since water companies in England and Wales were privatised in 1990. It claims that in the 33 years since privatisation, the shareholders of the 10 English and Welsh water and sewage companies have invested less than nothing of their own money in the companies. But it says over the same time, the companies have paid out the equivalent of nearly £73 billion in dividends to investors and shareholders.
We're not arguing about the scale of what has actually been done, or even at this stage, what needs to be done in terms of building new sewers and sewage treatment plants. What we're looking at is who's paid for that. Who's actually injected the funds for that?
The regulator Ofwat disputes the dividend figure, saying the total payout to shareholders has been £52 billion, and also says there's been record investment in the industry that amounts to almost £200 billion since privatisation. The trade body Water UK says that investment in water requires financing through dividends. It added that the industry is now waiting for Ofwat to give it the green light, so it can increase household water bills to pay for upgrades and tackle sewage discharge issues.
We invited South West Water bosses onto the programme, but they declined. When asked how much of its debt has financed dividends, the company told us, "We won't be providing a comment on this occasion, but thank you for getting in touch." The company previously told us it's investing £750 million in infrastructure over the next 2 years. Now, I mean, clearly the Brixham incident has brought this into focus again, but as those exchanges in both Houses of Parliament demonstrated, there is a much, much broader concern amongst all parties and the public about the state of the water industry, particularly high bills and sewage pollution incidents. Now, it seems to me, and Luke and Connor might enlighten me on this, that in terms of fundamental reform, both Labour and the Conservatives are saying, look, we've got this privatised system, we're landed with it, we've got to make it work better, largely through sort of enforcement. The Liberal Democrats are saying you would actually fundamentally alter it by changing the water companies into public benefit companies, and this, as I understand it, is something that happens in the United States, not in water as far as I can see, where companies have to balance profits against social good. Ruth?
Yep, so the Liberal Democrats have a plan on this, and we've really been leading the charge in Parliament as well in terms of campaigning on this issue, pressing for tighter regulation and for more action to be taken, frankly, to end the scandal of sewage dumping. You know, I really feel for people in Brixham. We could see there the sort of anger and disgust about what is happening. We need to make sure that's cleared up as soon as possible. I was at the paddle out protest down at Gilly Beach last weekend. Again, you could just see the public anger about this and the appetite for really this issue to be got a hold of. And so the Liberal Democrats have been really clear about what we would do about this. So first of all, we would ban water bosses' bonuses until this situation is resolved and the sewage dumping stops. We would abolish Ofwat, which has, you know, we can see it's been totally useless as a regulator. We need to replace it with something much tougher so that there's proper consequences when pollution does happen. And to your point about the public benefit company, so this is a real kind of wholesale transformation of the water industry. So what we need, and again, we heard some of the issues there about how do we fix this problem given where we are, and how do we do that in a fair way that isn't going to leave the customer and the taxpayer picking up the bill, but is still able to bring in the investment that we need in our sort of ageing infrastructure. So on the public benefit company, so Patagonia Clothing Company, for example, is a public benefit company. It's a model that exists in Europe. Essentially, it would force the companies to put the environment at the centre of their purpose and make it not all about profit, while still allowing for that private investment that we need.
I want to bring the others in. I mean, beginning with Luke. I mean, it seems to me that there's pretty much a consensus that the present system is broken. I mean, there are claims here that investment from private investors isn't improving infrastructure. There is no competition in the water industry. Your colleague, Labour colleague there, Lord Boateng, say if you look at a nationalised system in Scotland, it's kept water prices down, there's more investment. Shouldn't you be going back to Jeremy Corbyn's policy you've scrapped and saying, we should just renationalise this?
No. I would love to change the water company fundamentally, but since the economy crashed with Liz Truss, there's not the money to make that big seismic interventions. What we do need to do is put the water companies immediately into special measures. They are failing people. They're failing on sewage, but now South West Water are failing on water quality as well. I spoke in the Commons debate on this. I'm deeply disappointed in the way that South West Water are treating their customers. There's an arrogant approach. They should be putting the customers at the heart of everything they do here, and it seems that they are needing to be kicked and dragged for every pound of compensation and every measure to help those poor folks in Brixham. But that's the challenge right across the coastline. special measures for all water companies, ban water companies' bonuses, introduce criminal charges for water bosses if they continue to illegally discharge sewage. They're the policies that we'd implement immediately if we win power, because this scandal has been going on for far too long. But what I saw in that Commons debate was ministers with their slopey shoulders not taking any responsibility for their failure to regulate water industry properly, their failure to provide people in Brixham with safe drinking water, and their failure to tackle the raw sewage that's polluting our rivers, lakes and seas.
OK, Connor.
So the Conservative government has passed measures that allow, for example, unlimited fines on water companies that pollute into our rivers and oceans. That's something that I support. I'm also going to, if I'm elected the next MP for Camborne, Redruth and Hale, support measures that would make sure that investment is prioritised over shareholder dividends. That message from South West Water to your viewers today is absolutely shameful.
Government policy,
Luke,
though,
please just let me finish my
Tory
point.
policy.
Let me just finish my point. It's absolutely vital that we get that. And I'm working with Surface Against Sewage and other local groups in Cornwall to make sure that we tie up investment cycles with bathing site designations, to make sure that we get that system working properly to improve water quality in our communities. And crucially, what I can do as a local member of Parliament is to work with South West Water to get that vital infrastructure investment, storm overflow, etc. But hang on, but the Liberal Democrats,
like 10 years.
The Liberal Democrats, with respect, I don't actually understand the policy that they're talking about. And the Labour Party, you just need to look at the blueprint in Labour-run Wales, where their marking and their star rating for their management of water quality has been downgraded from 3 to 2. That shows that Labour don't have a plan. They don't have a plan in our part of
I've just set out the plan,
the South West
you need
either.
to listen to
They
the
don't
answers.
they don't have that plan. Well, when Labour Keir Starmer ran to be your Labour leader, he pledged, I think, to nationalise the water industry. Now he's rowed back on that, and people can't
I've just
trust
explained
Labour.
why that was,
People,
Connor.
you can blame whoever you want. Labour can't be trusted to carry out anything.
The difficulty we've got
that
here
they
is
are
the
planning.
answers you're given might be fine for you as an individual candidate, but they're not Conservative policies. So everyone watching at home with their Tory candidate are going to get a different answer than you're
fair to say,
giving.
isn't it? You were tied. I mean, you can be independently minded. As a backbench MP, before an election campaign, during an election campaign, it is the case. You have to stand by the manifesto, the Conservative manifesto. You can't have your own policies.
I'm standing by the measures that have been implemented, for example, unlimited fines on polluting water companies,
Labour policy
and
adopted.
making sure that we get those systems in place. Because actually, despite the party politics here, people out there want their rivers and oceans to be cleaned up and make sure that we hold
Conservative Party has had 10 years to do this, Connor.
Make sure and those measures have been implemented, Ruth, over the last 10 years. For example, 100% monitoring of storm overflows. We inherited a position in 2010 from a Labour government. 6% of storm overflows were monitored.
Self-monitoring was introduced by Labour in 2009. That's absolutely right, isn't it?
And you can't tackle the problem unless you know where the problem is. Labour didn't care about that because they only wanted 6% monitored. We've got it to 100%. We know where the issue is now, and we are fixing it.
We know just how bad it is, and the Liberal Democrats have got a practical and workable solution about how we move forward from this situation that we're in.
It is the case, isn't it? I mean, you've attacked the government heavily on this. They say they've done more than any previous government to address this. We're running out of time rapidly, but that's essentially true, isn't it?
So, just to come back to this public benefit thing, because Connor
you've got
doesn't
about 20
understand
seconds,
it. It will put environment and community at the heart of the company, so making it a not-for-profit company that can invest for the long term in the infrastructure that we need.
OK, we have no more long term on this programme, but of course we'll be with you throughout the rest of this very long campaign. Thank you to my 3 guests in the studio. We'll see you soon. Goodbye.